the URL for Ames is ames.magnetdata.net. You can always get to it, like I said, from the Ames homepage. Like I said, I'm just going to log in today as myself. We might go ahead and log in as a Time Warner user as we kind of progress through the app. I'm going to go ahead and log in here. One thing that's important to point out, a lot of you may be asking, who do I reach out to in terms of support? There's a couple of different ways that you can get support. You can obviously email me, Josh, or Renee directly. We do have chat support live on Ames here. You can click on this and chat if you'd like to. There's also an Ames support forum that we have that can be referenced on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. And as I mentioned previously, we're going to record this call today so that you can go back and reference it if you need to. I've logged in as Ames here. This is the meat of the dashboard. I mean, this is what the dashboard looks like. This is the home screen. Navigate back to the home screen. You can always get to it by clicking on the Ames icon in the top left, obviously. Ames works in 3 different processes. The first process would be to create your distribution, and we'll go through that. The second part of the distribution is to go in and review the results that Ames is providing. Important to realize that all of the Ames results can be viewed down within the app to the store level, and any manual updates that you would normally make in Excel can be made in Ames, and the distributions can then be reprocessed, and Ames is smart enough to remember any manual updates that you've made and not overwrite those changes. So thinking about it, intuitively, you can always go in and create a distribution and say, hey, I don't agree with what Ames has said on this dealer. I'm going to update it manually. Ames will remember that. If you reprocess the distribution, it will remember that, it will store it, and it will never overwrite what you do. The third phase, after you've reviewed it and you're okay with it, is to submit it to wholesale. Ames allows you to submit distributions directly to wholesale through the app. And we highly recommend doing it this way because what it does is after you've submitted these results, it actually, after the issue goes on sale, it will provide audit results telling you that if your distribution that you created and submitted actually happened. So you can submit them, I believe a week after on sale date, you'll get an email and you'll say, hey, these are what you recommended, the changes you recommended, and these are what actually happened. You can always reference those audit results in the dashboard here as well. So really there's 3 phases. The bulk of your time is probably going to be spent in creating the distributions and reviewing the distributions, and then submission is a new piece that's kind of evolving. We have worked with all of the wholesalers out there to get a standardized template that they want all of their Ames distributions to come in. They are accepting distributions. Every wholesaler out there is accepting distributions in a created. However, now that they start to get more and more, we are seeing that there are changes that have been asked, and we're doing our best to create those changes and give them to them exactly how they want. And that's something that we feel is important. That way they're getting all of their distributions in a normalized fashion, and they're able to filter through it and accept it or reply back to you all if they have any questions or concerns about the distributions. That's one thing that is important to mention. The Ames distributions are coming straight through the Ames app. However, when they get them, if they were to reply to that email, it would go back to the person that submitted the distribution. So any questions they have would go back to you. Ames is simply a tool for creating the distributions. We don't want to get in the middle of communicating with the wholesalers. More than happy to help them create templates and get the data exactly how they see it, but the interaction between the wholesalers and the person who is working the distribution is really up to you all. Ames is a very intuitive tool. However, there are some setup things that you may want to do prior to creating distributions. I can go through and talk through some of these toolbars on the left-hand side of the screen. I think that might kind of get you all thinking on how it works. Basically, we have 2 different ways of running a request. Requests are run at the target issue level, so the issue that you're trying to run a distribution for is what we call a target issue. And we have two different modes. We have an advanced mode, which, you have a lot of, basically all of our rules at your fingertips. And then we have a standard mode where you can fire through a distribution in a matter of seconds. Those two are right up here in the top left-hand corner. The only difference between them really is we have a lot of default rules that are used in the standard mode, and they are not allowed to be updated by the user. The advanced mode, you can simply update everything. Request grouping is something that is brand new. Many of the wholesalers out there have asked us to allow publishers and national distributors to submit distributions at a group level, so multiple target issues, multiple allotment requests sent to them at once. So now we have the ability to group submissions, group ARs, and submit them to the wholesalers in bulk. So you could theoretically submit 100 target issues to News Group at once. That's the request grouping page. Port file templates. That's all the different templates that they've given us. And how they want to see them. You can pull down a sample of that by clicking on it here. Email templates. AIMS has the ability to set up email templates so that when you go in and you create your distribution, you review it, and then you go to the submission page, instead of having to type up an email the same way every time that goes to the same people and pick your export template or the format that you want it to go in, AIMS allows you to create so that all you have to do is basically pick it and go in and submit the distribution. So you can see that every user can create and manage their own email templates. And basically, I have a bunch of sample ones in here, but it's basically this top box here where you type in who you want it to go to. You type in the name of the template, basically what you want in the body. When you get to the submission page, it's going to look just like this, but all the information will be pre-filled. And you have the ability to update it just for that submission. So if you wanted to put in a generic body and add a few notes to it, you certainly can do so. The next kind of thing on the list here is promotions. AIMS currently does handle promotions. You can go in and set up promotions within the tool. You can do promotions by a certain chain selection, so you can pick a chain. You can do them by a store list selection. So basically you can go in, you can create and name a promotion. You can do it a flat number of copies per store, or you can do it by a factor. So if you wanted to multiply every current draw times 1.5, you could certainly do it by that. You can actually build in the cost of the promotion, and that's one thing we'll touch on later, is the profitability at the store level. Once you activate this promotion, when you go in to build the distribution, it will remind you, hey, there's an active promotion that you've created on this issue, and you like to apply it. So that's a rule that you can do here. So if you ever want to apply promotions on some of these target issues, you can certainly do so. You can build them all in here under the promotions tab. You can see the promotions that you've built. Currently I have 0 in here, but they would tab right here, and you can manage them as is. I did say briefly that you can manage it at the store list upload tab. The way you upload a store list is over here on the left-hand side of the screen as well. It's very simple. You create an Excel file or a CSV file. You put in the information, you name it, you select it, you navigate to whatever the store list file is, you select it, it lets you match the columns with our columns, and you upload it. It's a very simple process. If you have any problems doing something like that, please feel free to reach out to us and I'll help you through it, but it is pretty simple. You can view and edit your current store list on this tab if you have any uploaded here, and you can manage them right within the app. So that's important. If you ever want to do a promotion, let's say for a certain subset of Kroger dealers or for a certain store list, you can always do it that way. The next thing is basically these two tabs are just for Magnet users. Basically, the next thing we should touch on here that you would see is production schedules. The way that it works is we get our title information from IPDA picks, and we load it into AIMS to show you all as soon as we get it from them. Generally, it's a few weeks out from on sale, so we get that information, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks or almost probably 3 or 4 months out from on sale, and we show those as issues that are available for you to work on. So let's say the issue in the end of May would probably be there, and you could work on it. If there are issues that you are not finding in there, be them not titles that are in IPDA picks or issues that are on sale going way into the future, you can always upload a production schedule. So that's where you would do that here. You can always upload your production schedule. It kind of works the same way as a store list upload. You select the file, you match the column headers, and it uploads production schedule. Then when you go into work or distribution, all the issues that you've uploaded will be provided to you to work. That's basically the function of things that you would need to upload. There are a few setup things that you can or cannot do. Those are in the user preferences tab. So basically, there's a lot of little functionality, things that you can view, things that you cannot view. Those can be found in here. There's multiple tabs on here. One important one that is important to mention is this agency submission grouping. And we're going to touch on this a little bit later, but there's kind of two different main groups when you're running AIMS distribution. So there's processing groups and there's submission groups. So processing groups are a given group of wholesalers that you want to run a specific set of rules, allotment rules, again. So let's say you wanted to run news group in a specific set of rules different than everybody else in the country. So when you create an AIMS distribution, you can create as many processing groups as you want, and I'll show you this when we're in there creating a distribution. But you can have 10 different processing groups for one target issue that you're trying to create a distribution for, and they all can have different rules. You know, each processing group can have different efficiency ranges, different rules for them, and then you have basically the submission groups. So submission groups is basically how you want them to be submitted to wholesale. So, for example, news group out there, you would want to create a group for news group East and a news group West. The way you create those submission groups is in this window. So agency submission grouping. See that I have one in here right now. If I wanted to click it, you'll see that I only have one particular agency in there. So I could edit this, or I could go back to the unassigned groups. You can create a new group, and let's just call it independent. You can pick an email template if you have one filled in. You can pick an export template, so you want to send all the independents in a particular format. Most of the independents are accepting our default template, so when you're doing the independent ones, you probably want to do that. I'm going to leave the email template blank here, I believe, unless I have an independent one in here. But basically, you would create your own email template for your independent wholesalers saying, hey, this is so-and-so, here's a distribution for that. You would pick your output template. In this case, it would probably be the default template. There are certain tabs that you can include or exclude, and this will make a lot more sense after you get into the distributions. That's what this is for. I've saved that group. I can hit close. Now you'll see that independent here. However, it has nobody in it. So we could start dragging independent wholesalers into that group. Okay? So you could come in here and you could grab them and start pulling them in. You could do this for news group or whatever. This is something I would highly recommend doing one time over here in the user preferences tab. So each time you create a distribution, you'll have them there to submit all of these wholesalers in one email, essentially, is what you're doing here, is saying, okay, you know, I want to put all these wholesalers in one email. Independent guys are usually going to be in a group of their own, but I'm just trying to show the functionality of creating groups here. So you'll see that these are all the wholesalers here. Let's do one for source. That would make a little bit more sense. Pick an email template, pick an output template, click save, and we'll scroll down here. just trying to show you how some of these things drag and drop, so we can start dragging in the source agencies into this given group. Okay, I'm just going to do a couple. So now we have those agencies in this distribution group. After you create a distribution and review it, when you go to submit it, it's going to submit it to these agencies. You know, we could go in and pick all the source agencies, but I just wanted to show you how this works. So that's an important thing to do and set up before you start submitting distributions. You only have to do it once. However, some people do it differently. Some people submit, you know, one source agency at a time. Some people submit all of them at once. So we allow that flexibility there, and that's one thing that I recommend that people do. Another thing on this tab, this User Preferences tab, is the Workflow Preference. This basically limits the number of issues that come back on your dashboard, so you can basically go in and update that, and it just happens every time you come. So it shows you the 20 most recent upcoming closings, the 20 most recent close upcoming closings, and the target issue search. It'll show you 20 on one page, and I'll point that out when we get to it. But these are just kind of preferences that you can play around with. Not necessary to do it. However, it'll probably make your life a lot easier. So one thing I'm going to do now, I think I'm going to actually log in as Ken. I have this magic button here where I can log in as anyone and see what they're doing. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to log in as Ken. And you'll see he's got a bunch of upcoming closings on his dashboard here. So he's on we're on the main dashboard now, logged in as a Time Warner user. He's got a number of upcoming closings on his dashboard. The ones that are highlighted in green are ones that are pretty close to your print order close date. And you can manage that, you know, that date before they highlight to green. So these are the ones that are telling Ken that he needs to work on right away. So it looks like you got a print order close date of 4/13 on this one. It's saying, hey, we need to work on that right away. So it's notifying him that he needs to work on these. Now these are in here because he's uploaded that production schedule that I showed you before. So he's uploaded the production schedule. Here's all the distributions that he's worked on, or he needs to work on. And the next tab is new distributions. So these are distributions that he started and hasn't finished. You can certainly go in here and work on them. You can also look at successful distributions, so all the distributions that have been run successfully, and we're limiting it to 50 here on the top right. That's one of the preferences that we can change. Any distributions that he has that have failed, and then all of the audit results on the distribution basically already submitted or already processed to AIMS. Here are the audit results available for him. So I think it would make sense to come in and just show you what a distribution looks like. So we'll look at one of his successful distributions, just picking one randomly. You can drill into the distribution at any different stage of the creation of the distribution. Let's drill into the results, which is this tab. I'm going to click on this icon, and what it does is it takes me to the results of this distribution. So this is the result of the distribution. There's a bunch of different summaries on here. This is kind of the final phase before you submit the distribution. You can look at your results by agency. You can look at them by RDC. You can look at them by chain. You can look at them by class of trade. And you can look at them by make order summary. You can also create your own custom summary with your own custom dealer list here on the custom summary. It's a good one to look at. This distribution, it looks like, was run for issue 2014-6 for all you. It looks like he's got a number of dealers to remove. He's got 0 new dealers here, so he wasn't putting any dealer rules in, which we'll talk about. He's got 5,000 dealers to reduce, and he's got 31,000 dealers to dealers not adjusted. So you got your dealer count, you got the current base of the dealers at wholesale, you have the current draw, you have the average sale from the issues that he selected, which is here, and you have the new base, and then you have the difference. You have the proposed new draw, actual draw for so on. Each one of these summary levels, each row, you can drill in and look at those dealers. So we could drill into a dealer to reduce bucket and look at those 5,000 dealers, right? So now I'm in the dealer level, drilling into those 5,000 dealers, and it's populating them on here. So it looks like at the top of the page here we have a number of different books of millions. Right now it's showing a number of different columns here. All of the columns can be managed by the user. All the columns can be rearranged and sorted on. You can take a column and you can move it to the right. You can sort on it by clicking on it. Do all of that type of stuff. You can filter on it. So if we wanted to come in here and filter this just for a given dealer name, you could do that. And basically what it's doing is it's showing you the information that you've asked it to show you, which you can manage on this Show Hide Columns Options box. So you'll see we have a bunch of different columns that you can include. I'm not going to go through all of them, but a lot of them are details for the store. So, you know, on-service date, off-service dates, on-hold codes, pocket counts, class of trade, whether or not it's a dealer on a promotion, you know, the profitability numbers. There's lots of different things that you can view here that are attributes of the dealer, and you can show and hide them by going into this column. So we're looking at a dealer. Let's just look at this top dealer here. We're looking at a Super Target. It looks like it's average sale across the issues that he selected is 32. The current draw is 86. The proposed base is 76. So Ames is proposing a drop in base. The proposed versus the current base is 10. So now Ames has gone through its logic and said, hey, it wants to regulate a dealer that's averaging 32 copies sale at a certain efficiency. I'm guessing he wanted to regulate it at 42% efficiency. That's why it's proposing a new base of 76. It's flagging this dealer as a dealer to reduce, because that's what we drilled into. If I were to go in and change this, you know what, I know something special about Target. I want to give this Target 80 copies. It's going to change that, and it's going to remember and capture that change. And this dealer would still be a dealer to reduce because it was going from 86 to 80. However, it's going to remember that you put 80, and if you were to go back and reprocess this request with new rules, it's always going to remember that you put 80 in this dealer. So that's something you can do in here. You can come in here and you can manage it and you can update it one by one, or you can go through and you can filter it and say, I wanted to come in here and look at everything that has the word Target in it. And you can come in here and you could look at all the Target stores. You could also go back to your summary level and look at it by chain and drill into the targets that way. So you can quickly filter to the dealers that you want to review, and you can update them or just comment to them, this one's okay, this one's okay, or you can just simply scroll through them. If you see something that doesn't make sense, then you can update it manually, and that's just an important thing to do here. Ames only gives you kind of a template based on the rules that you provide it, but you can always go in and change and update that information. There's also a way to bulk update a lot of dealers, okay? So you can always take, you know, a bunch of dealers. Let's say we wanted to grab a bunch of dealers, let's say targets. We wanted to highlight these targets right here. And see how they turn blue? Well, across these targets, we want to copy current draw. We don't want Ames to do what, you know, it's saying it's doing, and we could update those by clicking update. There's two ways to update in the bulk options section. Obviously, there's different things that you can do. You can copy current draw, you can copy base, you can just set a flat base number to 0, or you can set a flat base number to whatever you want. You can update the dealers that you select, or you can update all the dealers that are in this search. So this current has a bunch of targets, not just 50 on here. It's got 341 targets. You could say update all, and it's going to update them all to copy current draw, copy base, set base to 0, or set it to a custom value. So a lot of times we have functionality that touch certain chains. It's called custom freeze logic. But a lot of times people say, okay, I just want to identify everything that's a Walmart, and I want to identify everything that's a Walmart selling over 20 copies, and I just want to copy current draw. So they'll go in here, they'll filter to Walmart, they'll filter to anything greater than 20. They do they select those Walmarts, or they update them all, and they tell them all to copy current draw. Ames is going to remember that you told it to do that, and it's not going to touch them as you continue to work on the distribution. So that's one thing that I like to point out. All right, so we'll move on to the next tab, which is from the dealer level. Is you can always export anything to Excel. Like I said, I recommend doing most of it in the Ames app so that when you make those changes, it remembers it. But if you ever want to pull something down into Excel, you can click the Export Options button and click whichever format you prefer, be it CSV or Excel. And you can click on that. It would download the file to your hard drive, and you could review it in there and say, hey, I only have 10 dealers that I want to update. I've identified them. Go into the app, find them, and update them that way if you prefer. I think the tool is smart enough to allow you to do it within the app, but some people prefer it in Excel, and that's completely up to them. So let's go back to the results summary tab. And here we're in the make order summary. Here's the agency summary. Here's the chain summary. So before, I basically went in and I searched at dealer level, and I was only at dealers to decrease, and I searched for targets. Well, what if I wanted to just look at all targets? So now I'm on the chain summary tab. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to type in target. I'm going to click search. If I could spell, that would help. So here's the target stores. I can drill into them. Now it's going to take me into every target that we have in this distribution. So every target that is going to all you, and it's going to tell you basically what it's doing on each one of these targets. So for each dealers not adjusted, dealers to increase, dealers to remove, dealers to decrease. And you can see that on the right-hand side here under your make order type. So you can see we have some that are dealers not adjusted. Yeah, we have some, it looks like most of these are dealer not adjusted on this main page, but you would see the difference here on the right-hand side. And you can always filter on that here, or you can sort by that, as I've showed previously. So dealer not added, dealer not adjusted. And these make order types will make more sense, and I can certainly explain them once we get into the rules page. You can do quick filters on these dealers to filter to them. So you can always do quick filters here on the top of the page, so you can quickly filter to dealers that don't have a current draw. You know, you quickly filter those, and it brings them up to that, and it would bring it back. Filter to if we were at the dealer level within within a dealers to increase, we could filter it to the top 5 chains. We could filter it to a lot of different things, and these quick filters are here for you. There's always a way to clear filters and clear a sorting that you have, and those buttons are here for you as well. All right, so we're looking at a sample distribution, but how did we get to this phase? How did we get here? So I'll walk through this distribution. I think it's a good distribution to show you kind of the rules that are in place for it. But all of this is done through either advanced mode or standard mode, and that's done by going into your dashboard and clicking on up here on the new or advanced tab. Once you do that, it takes you step by step building a distribution. The first step would be picking a target issue, right? So we're going to look at this all you one. We're going to look at a target issue, and we'll see that basically, basically on this issue, Ken came in, or one of Ken's folks came in and typed in all you, and they wanted to work on issue 6, 2014-6, on sale May 23rd. Okay, so he's picked that as his target issue. As soon as he does that, it brings him to the second tab, which is your issue selection. So which issues do you want to include in your issue averages? So he searched for, it looks like he searched for 10171, same biped, and it came in and it gave him a bunch of issues, and he's gone in and he's picked that his base issue is, let me sort this by on sale date. His base issue is issue 2014-3, and these are the issues that he's picked to be in his issue average. He's picked, looks like the last issues of 2013, so 9, 10, 11, and 12. Here you have draw sale numbers here and the efficiencies. You can also look at the covers by hovering over them. and we'll go through and run a simple distribution, but just for this request, it's important to point out that these are the issues that he selected. Then you go in, and here's where you create your processing groups. So the groups that you want to apply certain rules against. You can go in and you can name your processing group. It looks like he applied the same rules against all of these wholesalers. So he did a national distribution with all of the same rules. You can certainly do Hudson with a certain set of rules and News Group with a certain set of rules. And the way that you do that and create that in this screen, you come in and you name your agency group name. You basically you can create multiple groups, so you can name one Hudson, one News Group, and save it. And then when you move on to the rules page, it lets you pick that group and apply certain rules against that group. One thing that's basically important to mention, it's kind of a new functionality. Basically, we have what we call now as a virtual RDC rule for titles that are going out to Sacramento, and they're basically being distributed instead of going to Ontario, Irvine, or Gardena, they're going straight to Gardena. Not sure if any of you are familiar with that, but there are certain titles, the larger titles, that basically use the Gardena RDC because they are weekly or they need a quicker distribution, so they're being shipped directly to Gardena. So that's one thing that you can activate here. This would obviously be in your news group processing group. So once again, he's selected all of the wholesalers. He's doing a national distribution. And here's where we get into the bulk of the rules. So you can see that he's got his processing group up here selected. Here are all the wholesalers that he's applying these rules against. If he had different processing groups, they would be here, and as you selected them, you would basically see the rules page populate with the different rules for each processing group. Since we have one, this is the rules that he's applying against all of these wholesalers. And we'll go through these rules one by one here, and this is one important thing to pay attention to, because there are a bunch of rules, but you know, they all kind of make sense once you hear them explained to you once. And we'll go through them here. The most important rule is this top rule. And we're just talking here about existing dealers. The top rule is basically the efficiency range rule. So here are the efficiency range rules that he's applied for this title, all you. So any dealer selling on average up to 1 copy, he wants to regulate at 30% efficiency. So if it's selling up to 1 copy, he wants to basically put 3 copies in. If it's selling up to 4%, he wants to regulate at a 35% efficiency. Up to between 4 and 7 copies, he wants to regulate it at a 40% efficiency. And then everything beyond that, he wants to regulate at a 42. So if you remember back to the target that we saw that was selling 78 copies or something like that, it was selling above 7, and it was regulating it at a 42% efficiency. So that's where that's based on. You can add ranges, you can remove ranges, you can create them to whatever range you want, and like I said, you can have different ranges for different wholesale processing groups. So you might want to run the source dealers at a different range than you run the news group dealers, and so on. And you can all do that here. The rules here are, like I said, are just for the current dealers, not set for new rules and competitive titles. The first rule that it looks at is what's the base data. Do you want to use it for O&R data or POS data? Right now, AIMS is set up for our users and you all just to use O&R data. However, we realize that POS is something that is going to be valuable in the future, so AIMS is built to be able to handle POS. And as soon as we get the okay to be able to do that, you're going to be able to run AIMS distributions on POS data instead of just strictly O&R data. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, which is here, and active, one thing that's important to mention is you can activate or deactivate these rules, is the number of issues that it wants to drop from his issue selection. So if you remember, he picked issues 9, 10, 11, and 12 of 2013, and he's saying that he wants to drop the highest selling issue and he wants to drop the lowest selling issue. And you can tell it to drop the highest 2 and the lowest 1 and so and so. So it's going through identifying which one's the highest selling one, removing that from its issue average calculation, and removing the lowest selling one. Another basically Another rule that we can apply against it is whether or not you use standard issue averages or the lift logic. So those of you who are familiar with how lift is coming up with issue averages, use that here as well, and that's for the average sale method rule number 3. Number 4 is the ranges that we talked about. Rule number 5 is basically the minimum sale. So this tells when we want to drop dealers from distribution. Okay, so what it does is basically, if it were active, it says any dealer that's selling less than 0.4 copies average but has been on for 3 issues, we want to remove it from the distribution. So this dealer has been on for 3 issues of the issues that we selected, and it's selling under 0.4. Let's go ahead and remove it. So you can customize those values to whatever you want. Obviously, some of it, it takes into effect the number of issues that you pick in your issue average. I believe he had 5 issues picked, and one of the high and the low are being dropped here. So if that issue was on for all 3 issues that he selected, and it's selling on average under 0.4, this rule, if activated, would remove those dealers. There are tooltips for all these rules. If you want to go back and when you're coming in here and you start working these distributions, you hover over them. It explains what they do. If you have any questions on the rules, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to help you. Rule number 6, minimum proposed. So this is the minimum number of minimum base that's going to go into any given dealer. Pretty self-explanatory. This is 3. So no, Ames will not create a distribution for any dealer less than 3 copies. Rule number 7, draw base update. So this is what needs to happen in order for that dealer to be regulated at the efficiency range above. So in order for it to be regulated at this above efficiency range, it needs to be on distribution for at least 2 copies, and it needs to be at least a draw change of 1 copy. Okay, so we don't want to be doing draw changes of 0.5 copies, obviously. So a lot of times this number will vary based on wholesale agency. Some will be 2 copies and so on. So, but you can regulate that here, and this is a rule that is almost always active because it basically tells you how to regulate these dealers. So it also lets you decide how you're going to handle stock accounts and specialty dealers. So for an airport stock, you can pick it to carry base, propose 0, or actually regulate the dealer. The same with a system stock, and the same with the specialty dealers. Specialty dealers are identified by source. If you need a dealer list, I can certainly provide them, but they basically tell us which dealers are specialty dealers. And by default, we're basically carrying the base. When we have a base, carrying current draw if we don't have base on those dealers. You can certainly change that in your rule set here. Pocket counts are pretty self-explanatory, so minimum base per pocket. We do pocket counts from you all, and we are loading them into the system, so you can put the number of the minimum base per pocket in here if you'd like to activate that rule. Here's the promotion rule. If there was a promotion that we created, it would notify us here and say, hey, there's an active promotion on this particular issue of all you that you're working on. Here's where you can activate it and say, hey, for all of the targets out there, there's a promotion putting 10 copies in each target. Do we want Ames to pay attention to that promotion? That's where you would activate it here. This does let you redirect to the promotion screen, so you can create a promotion. If this all of a sudden reminds you, oh, I need to put a promotion in, this can redirect you to that, and you can create the distribution there. The final piece, well, not the second to last piece here, is profitability. So we have the ability to input profitability. If you guys would like to put that in, and a lot of the publishers out there are doing that, but they're putting in their costs, be it their distribution subsidies at wholesale, their PP&D, the wholesaler discount, and the brokerage fees, so that when the Ames distribution comes out and you're looking at it at the dealer level, you can see how profitable each of these stores are. So if you'd like to do that, it's simply an attribute of the dealer after the distribution runs. It's just another dimension for you to use when you're deciding how many copies you want to keep to a store. So if we got to the dealer level and we saw that it had this is the amount of profit we were earning on this store, let's see what happens to profitability if I shift my copies up or if I shift my copies down. You can do that by activating this rule. one thing that's important to mention is we do realize the sensitivity of some of this information, and it is only available within the app. Any distributions that are submitted to wholesale or exported, profitability numbers will not be shown on those exports. So the only place that you're going to see the profitability numbers are in the app, in the drill down to the dealer level. Custom freeze is a new rule that we've put in place, and basically what it allows you to do is say, Ames is great, we love what Ames is doing, but we don't want it to touch our airports, and we don't want it to touch our Walmarts, and we don't want it to touch Barnes & Noble. Certainly do that in the custom freeze window. You can put in a given chain, you can put in a given class of trade, so we could come in here and we could type in Walmart, and we could pull it over. And once you come in here and you find the chains that you're searched to, you can drag them over. Let's move this up. And you could say terminals, you could pull over terminals. And then you basically select what you'd want to do for those two particular things. You could either tell it to carry current draw or carry current base. So if we tell it to carry current base, Ames is going to run its distribution, but before it changes any Walmarts or any terminals, it's going to say, nope, can't touch that. I'm just going to copy current base. So that's what we call the custom freeze logic. A lot of people are using this for terminals. They're using it for stock accounts. They're using it for Walmarts and certain retailers. So that's available for you to activate if you need to. All right, I didn't save that. I don't want to mess up Ken's distribution, so I'm not going to save that. So that's basically all the existing dealer rules. Once again, this is managed at the agency processing group level. So you can have different rule sets for different agency groups. All of these rule sets you can save, okay? So if for some reason you always run a certain title with a certain set of rules, you can always save these rule sets and it remembers them. So it'll let you go in and pick that rule preset if you don't want to go in and manage it each time. So you can always save these rule sets at the title level. And so next time you come in and you work, let's say, issue 7 of all you could quickly come in and you could pick that agency title preset, and you could do that. And the way that you save those rules is this button here, Save as Title Preset. It allows you to save it. And then on this page, basically, it shows you for this title, or these titles, these are the agency title presets that he's already saved. So you can always get to them up to this page. So we've touched on new current dealer rules. I think this is a good place to open the floor up to questions about any of the rules. If anybody, it would probably be a good time to ask any questions about the rules for current dealers. Does anybody have any questions? Good. I must have done a good job, or everybody's sleeping, so we'll see. New dealer rules. So the next thing to talk about is basically new dealer rules. You have the ability to put in a competitive title or a comparable title and run new dealer rules. So in here we could quickly run a distribution for all you, and we could also use new rules for dealer expansion, right? So we could come in and we could put in up to 3 competitive titles. You could search for your issues, and then you could basically have it look and apply new dealers for this title based on the competitive titles that you've selected. So you could come in here and you could pick a competitive title, and once you came in and picked a competitive title, you'd see one of these windows light up, and it would tell Ames how to handle dealers that are selling well for that competitive title. So we'll go through these rules. Rules 9, 10, and 11 are all basically the same. They're separate for each competitive title that you choose. Rule number 8 is an important one. That's authorized, not distributed. So basically it goes out and it looks across all the wholesalers that you've picked, and it looks for dealers that are authorized but not on distribution for all you. So it goes in, it goes in and it looks and finds those authorized dealers, and if they're authorized and it's not getting done, basically it includes them in that distribution. And a lot of people will basically say, well, what about dealers that were tried? What about dealers that were were tried, you know, a few months back and we decided to pull them off. Would all of those come back? No, because we manage if the dealer is a tried dealer or not. You can see that here down here on the bottom of the page, rule number 13. If it is a tried dealer, if it does have draw within the last year, Ames would not consider that for dealers. Competitive title is basically, you know, if we were to come in here and put a competitive People magazine or something like that, you would go in and basically pick your competitive title. It would fill in the buy pad here. Basically what we look for is say, okay, on People magazine, we're looking for any dealers that have a minimum average sale of this. So any
No, I'm in the middle of a conference call right now.
A minimum average sale of 3, want to put back that dealer.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
So minimum base for that dealer would be 3. The maximum base for that dealer would be 9 based on these rules that we put in here. You could certainly update that. And the minimum number of issues that it's been on is also criteria. So basically what this dealer would do, or what Ames would do, is it would look for all dealers that are averaging at least 3 copies sale on People magazine. They've been on for at least 3 issues. And the minimum proposed base that we want to propose on them is 3, and the maximum is 9. So if it was a People magazine dealer that was selling, on average, 4 copies, it would take it in. It would say, okay, it's been on for at least 3 issues, People selling, on average, 4 copies. It would multiply it times that factor of 1.25, so it would come up to a new proposed base of 5, which also fits within the range between the minimum and maximum base. And it would go ahead and propose 5 on that dealer. It would only do that if that dealer was not a tried dealer. If that dealer did not receive all-you distribution within the last year. So you can manage that at the title level here. You can manage that, you know, for each competitive title. You have rules for each competitive title. All of them are explained once again in this step. And you can tell the system to use all of the rules, or you can tell the system to just do one of the rules. If one's on, then move on. If they both have to be on in order for me to add this dealer, and so on. So you can manage it between an and or an or here on the bottom of the screen. So this would say and comp to or comp to. And in order for me to change it, it would have to be active. We haven't put in any competitive titles here. So, but that's what basically you could do. You could say if it was on for People and for Us Weekly, then we would like to add that dealer. Recent dealer openings is another rule in here. Basically, it goes out and looks for new dealers that have opened and proposes a new base. You can exclude or include dealers that are authorized. So if you only want to look for recent dealer openings that are authorized, that would be this top button, and dealers without an authorized list. So there are obviously retailers out there that where there's not an authorized list managed, you can include or exclude those dealers based on here. Obviously, you would only want to use this rule if you're not using the authorized, not distributed rule. You just wanted to look for recent dealer openings. So that's that. That's how you explain the new dealer rules. So we've gone through kind of the difficult part of the demonstration here, explaining the rules. I can understand how it can be a little overwhelming, trying to understand how all the rules work. Just one thing that's important to realize is that there are tooltips there for you to reference. A rule is not active unless it's this lighter color. You can activate or inactivate it by checking the active box. And just realize that it kind of goes in order. You have an order processing number, and it kind of goes through those in order. So if you're referencing them and you're trying to figure out exactly what Ames did, you can certainly ask me or any of the folks here. But it's processing these dealers on current dealers in order. Then it's going in and looking for new dealer expansion. And it's processing those in order as well. Searching for buy pads and all of that type of stuff is pretty self-explanatory. If you have any issues with that, please feel free to let me know. But it's pretty self-explanatory. You can come in, you can type in a buy pad or a title and search for them. So these are the rules, basically, that have been chosen for this distribution. You've clicked Save. You've saved your rules. It'll notify you that, and then it'll take you to the next tab, which is Allotment Processing. Here's where you process a request. You click Process. The allotment request will process. Usually a national distribution will take a few minutes, and then that's done processing, You'll get a copy of the allotment of the distribution in your email. You'll also see that this will change from yellow to green, as it already is green here. And then you can go in and manage your results. So you can go in and look at your results and touch on some of the things that we've touched on before. You can drill in and basically do all of that fun stuff and review the distribution. You're going to spend a lot of your time doing that review, I understand, and you're going to go to things and update them. Once you've gotten to the point where you're comfortable with the distribution and you're looking at this make order summary and you're comfortable with the changes that are going to go, then the next step is to submit the distribution. Okay, so the next step of that is under submission options. Here is where you would have your submission groups that we've set up. And here's where you'd pick which wholesalers or which submission groups that you wanted to select, and then you'd go in and you'd actually submit the distributions through wholesale. So here's where you could go in and you could create your submission groups, or if you had already created them like I touched on before, you could pick agencies, pick the ones that you want to submit. Let's say over here we had a group of all source agencies. You could go in and you could pick that group. You would pick the group. You could go in, and then here's where you'd pick your output template. So you wanted it to go as a source output template. You would have a pre-made AIMS email template that you wanted to fill in. It would have an email address here. You could CC whomever you wanted, and basically all the information would be put in here. You could come in here and quickly add it, update that information, and then you would basically submit the distribution to wholesale and wait for their feedback. It's important to mention that you're gonna do a bunch of things. So you'll have a list here of all the different submission groups, all the different groups. You're gonna have one group for Hudson Atlas. You're going to have one group for TNG East. You're going to have one group for TNG West. You're going to have one group for Source. You're going to have a bunch of different groups here, and you're going to click on them, make sure your email is correct, and then submit the results. So you're going to come in, pick your agency submission group, let's say Hudson. Pick it, pick your email. It should pre-populate your email template and your output template, and then you're going to type in maybe a few things in your email body, and then you're going to submit it. If you're a little leery of that the first couple times you're doing that, I completely understand. We've built in a test submission button just for that reason. So it's going to submit the distribution to you exactly as the wholesaler would see it. So you can click this test submission button. If I were to click this right now, it would submit the agencies that I had selected over here on the right-hand side, and it would submit them to Ken instead of to the folks over at Source. So it would submit the distribution as if it were going to Source, but it would actually just go to Ken. He's the one doing the test submission. So this is the kind of final piece of the distribution. You go in, you create the distribution, you review it using the summaries that we touched on. You reference your rules. You can always go back and reprocess the request as many times as you want if you want to fine-tune the rules. And then you go in and you submit it. Like I said, things will look a little differently when you have submission groups selected here. You'll see a bunch of groups on the right-hand side. You'll have, Source or Hudson here. You'll pick them, and then you'll submit the template. And when we go in and run a sample distribution, we'll log in as myself, and you'll see that. That's the final phase. Once it submits, it'll give you a successful, successful notification, and then that will then show up on your dashboard as a successful distribution. So you'll see it come in here as a successful distribution. Looks like Ken ran this for distribution yesterday at 5:39 a.m. or one of his folks in India there, and basically he's submitted this, or he's ran this distribution. As soon as this issue goes on sale, you'll get audit results. So you click on the audit tab and you'll get an email, and you'll see this audit icon pop up. And you'll be able to review those audit results. So I created this distribution. Let's see if any of these changes actually happen. So that's what the audit result tab is for. So that's basically the process of explaining all the rules and all the different distribution criteria. I think a lot of it will begin to click as we go in and create sample distributions here. I'm going to log in as myself so I don't run any distributions under Ken's credentials, but But that's the explanation part of it, and now we'll get into kind of the fun part of creating a distribution. Like I said before, there's different ways of creating distributions. There's two basic modes. We haven't really spent a lot of time in the standard mode because it is so simple, but let's go ahead and run a distribution in standard mode. This is what it looks like. The first thing you would do is pick a title that you want to work on. So let's go ahead and pick People Magazine. Here are all the issues of People Magazine, all the way going up into July 2014. Here's where if you were to upload a production schedule for People Magazine and you wanted to look at issues beyond June, July, they would show up if that production schedule was worked on. Let's work on the issue that's going on April 25th, and you'll see that the next button has picked up by blue. One thing I didn't mention before is that you can run distributions by agency or by chain. So you have that option here. To run a distribution just for Kroger stores, you could do that. If you wanted to run it just for a particular agency, you could do that, or certainly you could do a national distribution. So I picked agency distribution. I'm just going to pick a random retailer we want to run a distribution for. We could certainly, run it for multiple agencies if we wanted to, but just for the purpose of demonstration, I've dragged over Newsways. We can drag over Southern Wisconsin News. Some of these other small guys, whatever you wanted to run it for, you can click Process. Now this is standard mode, so this is taking all of our default rules into selection here. So it's picking a year's worth of issues, it's going in and it's doing the standard efficiency range, and now it's running with our standard rules. So this is if you want to run a literally like a 15-20 second distribution for a title. That distribution is now running. You'll see that this is yellow. This will continue to run until it's successful, and then it will populate with green. We could drill in and look at the rules and look at the results. While this is running, let's go in and let's run a. Oh, it's already done. So might as well look at this one now. So that quickly, we ran a People Magazine distribution for 2 agencies, just using the simple default rules. And you'll see that that's now done running. Let's go in and look at the rules, and you'll be familiar with some of these results pages now because I've touched on them. But basically what you'll see here is the Newsways in Southern Wisconsin information. Doesn't look like Newsways is using a base, so they're just using current draw. Here are the 2 agencies that we selected. Here's the summaries for them, what it wants to do with them. You can obviously look at RDC summary. We can look at the chain summary for these for this distribution and so on. Here's the make order summary. So with our default rules across these agencies, this is what it's chosen to do. It's identified nearly 1,500 dealers that it does not want to adjust, showing that the current draw is 10,000 copies. It's identified 349 dealers that it wants to increase, 98 dealers that it wants to reduce, 47 that it wants to remove, and since we didn't put any new dealers in, it's identified 1,600 dealers that are not added, however, could be added if you wanted to drill into them. So that's that. That's how it ran. That's how quickly you can run a sample distribution in standard mode. A lot of times people are running that, this is their kind of their first line of attack, and then they can go back in and modify the rules. So standard mode uses our default set of rules. We could always go across these breadcrumbs here to see which issues it selected. So here are all the issues it selected in our issue average. Once again, these were default selected based on a year, I believe, of on sale. It picked the default base issue, which is the issue that went on sale March 21st. It picked that as our base issue. It's still on the rack right now. Here's all the issues that it picked for calculating our issue average. Agency, obviously we selected that. It's got those 2. Here are the default rules that it picked. So these are our default rules that we have for them. You could obviously go in and you could fine-tune these. You could go in and say, well, hey, these ones, I want to shift these ranges. Let's say I want to do this one up to 50%. Let's say I want to all of a sudden put a minimum base per pocket rule in. I want to do that. I want to go in and activate this rule for deleting dealers. You could go in and do that. You could click Save, go back to your allotment processing tab, and reprocess the request. So now we're reprocessing it. So we started in the standard mode, which was real quick, picking an issue that we wanted to work on. Now we've gone in and we kind of fine-tuned the rules, and now we're reprocessing the request. So that's one way to kind of run these distributions. So we're going to let that run and plug away. Like I said, it'll probably take another 15, 20 seconds with these rules that we've put in. But this is kind of nice because you can fine-tune the rules. You can continue to reprocess them and see what's been done by tweaking those rules. All right, that's done. You'll see here, it looks very similar. Let's look at the make order summary. All right, it's got, instead of 1,500 dealers not adjusted, now it's only got 1,300. It's got around roughly the same numbers of dealers to increase, and it's got a few more dealers to remove because we activated that that minimum sale rule. So it's got 230 instead of like 70 dealers to remove now. So we've that quickly changed the rules and reprocessed the request. You could certainly drill in to these dealers to remove like we did in the beginning part of this demonstration. Review these dealers to remove, and if for any reason you didn't want to review them, you could go in and update the base manually one by one, or you could do that bulk update option. You could say, okay, these are all the dealers I want to remove. I don't really want to remove any dealers. I'm going to go to my bulk update options. I'm going to select to copy current draw, and I'm just going to update all. It's going to warn you, hey, there's 236 dealers. Are you sure you want to apply this change to all of them? I picked that. Since we drilled into dealers to remove, there's no longer any dealers to remove. I go to my results summary and go to my make order summary, and you'll see that we no longer have any dealers to remove. So everything is live. Everything is refreshing as you update it at the dealer level. We have, basically 0 dealers to remove now, and you can see that our draw and base amounts have changed accordingly. Let's say we wanted to go into our chain summary. We wanted to go in and we wanted to drill to our 7-Elevens. We've drilled in now to all of our 7-Elevens. We have some that have a user proposed base of 0. We can filter this to say, it starts with equal to, greater than. Let's do greater than 1. These are all the 7-Elevens saying greater than 1. Let's do a bulk update option on these. And let's say for all of these, we want to set a user proposed base of 10 copies. Update all. That all of these are going to update to 10. So our new user proposed base is 10. All of these changes have been commented out. You'll see that some of these are now dealers to increase, some are dealers to remove. Also store what Ames is proposing. So Ames was proposing 15, but you've said to give it 10. You could go in there. Then you could filter into these, and you could say, hey, oh, well, for whatever reason, this one dealer, I really want to keep it the same. I want it to stay at 14, right? So I'm going to pick that one. I'm going to pick 14. I'm going to save that dealer. It says I proposed a base of 14. Ames is going to remember that you did that. So if we wanted to go back and reference this dealer, it's dealer number 252184, we could go back, after we reprocess the rules, and we could find that particular dealer. So I could come in and I could go to my rules page. I could fine-tune my efficiency ranges. Save the new rules. Go up to my processing and reprocess the request. So the data is as current as when you've reprocessed the request. So now it's going through, it's applying those new efficiency ranges, but it's remembering the work that we did on those dealers to reduce, and it's also remembering the work that we did on 7-Eleven. Let's give this a few seconds to run. Important to mention that you can move on. We could go back to the dashboard, start working on another request. We could do whatever we want. You don't have to wait on this page, but for demonstrations, we wait to show you how quickly this ran. So now we've run all this information. We have new rules applied against it. Make order summary is going to reflect still 0 dealers to remove, okay? So because we copied current draw on those, if I wanted to drill in to the chain level and I wanted to go back to the 7-Elevens, you're going to see, once this refreshes here, you're going to see that the dealers that we selected before, all the ones that were selling on average over one copy sold, we kept them at 10, or we kept them at 2. Dealer that we picked 52184. Let's filter down to that dealer. It's kept at 14 base. Even though we reprocessed it and we ran through all the rules again, it's remembered that we flagged this to only to give 14 copies on this dealer. All right, so that was standard mode that kind of morphed into changing the rules on a standard mode request. I think a lot of you will probably spend time creating new advanced requests. Pretty simple stuff. Once again, you know, you can come in here. This is your main, your first breadcrumbs up here. They won't be available for you to pick on until you've kind of walked through the step of creating the distribution. We're going to name this the sample distribution people. You can name the distribution. You can run it by chain. Let's do one by chain. Also, do this thing called new dealer prospecting, where you're only looking for new dealers. So I want to leave all my current dealers as is, but I only want to look for new dealers. And the way that you do that is you check this box, and it basically takes you through the same process, but you're only really putting in rules for those new dealer rules. You're not putting them in for the existing dealer rules. So if you want to just look for dealer expansion, new dealers prospecting. That's it. Let's go ahead and pick which issue we want to look at. Once again, you can search by BiPAD or by title. Let's pick that same issue, issue 23, on sale May 23rd. We've clicked save. It said that it's saved, and you'll see that the next breadcrumb has gotten available up here on the top of the screen for us to pick. Here's where we can come in and pick our base issue. So when you pick your base issue, just to give you a little background, that's how it grabs your current dealer set. So any dealer that was on distribution for that dealer or any dealer since then is going to be an existing dealer. So any dealer that's been on distribution since the March 14th on sale or any of these issues since then, it's going to consider those a current dealer. You can pick issues for our issue averages. Click Save. Since we chose a chain distribution, here's where we're going to go in and we're going to pick our chain. You could certainly do multiple chains. You can run a certain set of rules for Kroger. You can run a certain set of rules for Walmart, whatever you want to do. I'm going to select all here, all Krogers. I'm going to click Save. Here's where we go in and we put our rules. So we could come in here and we could fine-tune all of these rules, as we said before. We could say we want to do certain different things here. And we could go into new dealer rules. So let's put in some new dealer rules. Us Weekly. Which issues do we want to use for Us Weekly? We'll just grab 4 issues here. So now we've chose those as our issues, and you'll see that this rule lit up. We want to go back and search for another title. Let's do Star. Pick in Comp 2, we can pick some issues for Star. Important that to realize that you can do all these. All right, so now you see that these comp things they've become active now. So you could come in here, and since these are kind of higher selling titles, we only want to identify a minimum average sale of Us Weekly of 5 and a minimum average sale for Star of 4. You could update all of these rules, and let's activate the dealers authorized, not distributed. So People Magazine dealers that are authorized that aren't distributed. Save here. Now we have existing dealer rules, which are here. All of these rules that we've explained. We have new dealer rules, which are here. You have all of these 2 different titles selected. You could do 3. Once again, you could do the or the and. So if it's on sale for Us Weekly and Star, or if it's on sale and selling for Us Weekly or it's selling for Star. So you could do ands or ors there. We've saved that. Now we've gone to allotment process, and we click process. So this is running just for Kroger. Obviously, you could have multiple wholesalers, multiple TNG wholesalers for Kroger that are going to come back. While this is running, I think it's important to point out that as the industry is kind of shifting and a lot of dealers are changing servicing wholesalers, that Magnet is doing the best that it can to keep track of those wholesale agreements and with those dealers. What we do basically is if we find that a bunch of dealers are changing hands between Source and News Group or Hudson and News Group, we keep track of that, and if we have a date from the wholesale agencies that that's what happened, we manage that at the dealer level. If we were to pick a target issue that was happening after that transition, Ames is smart enough to put the distribution on that new dealer. So let's say this right now the store is serviced by Source, but by the time this issue goes on sale, it's going to be serviced by News Group. Ames will return the distribution and show you the results under the News Group. So we call it an effective date, but basically the date at which those stores change servicing wholesalers, any distribution for an issue that's on sale after that date is going to show under the new current servicing wholesaler. This is run. Once again, we ran this for Kroger. So you'll see under the chain summary, see just one chain agent. Summary, see the dealers not adjusted, dealers to increase. It looks like it identified 2 dealers that Us Weekly and Star are doing well in, that People is not in, which is surprising to me, but you could certainly drill into those 2 dealers. Out of curiosity, let's take a look at those. Looks like these are new dealers, new openings, because they don't have a current base. All right, I'll go back to the results summary. So that quickly run a distribution just for Source. If we were to run this distribution on a new dealer prospecting mode, it would come back with just 2 dealers. There's also a bucket on here called Dealer Not Added. So these are all the new prospective new dealers that are selling in Source for Source and Us Weekly, but however they didn't meet the criteria that we put in, so you could filter through to these and not add them to distribution. So you could sort through these, and if for some reason you wanted to add them, you could. A lot of them are probably closed. And then let's actually export this to Excel. So we're here, we're at the summary level, we're looking at the distribution summaries. If I wanted to pull this out in Excel and show you what our default template looks like, I'm going to click that button. You see it's downloading here on the bottom left. I'm going to click on it. Usually takes longer for Excel to open than it does for it to download. All right, we're in Excel. You'll see that Excel has a number of different tabs. So this is what we call our default template. Wholesalers have different templates they've requested of us, but this is our default template, and this is what a lot of the independent guys have asked of us. See that a lot of them look similar to what you already see in Ames. So you have your agency summary, you have your RDC summary, you have your chain summary, passive trade summary. Here's an upload tab for the agency. So this would be the existing dealer's upload tab. So it has the buy pad, the average sale, the old base, the new base, and the difference. Here's the new dealers, the 2 new dealers that we picked. We have 2 kind of upload tabs that they would either be uploading into their system or keying into their system. You have your make order summary, which looks familiar. You have your details tab, which has basically all the information. Tab it has a bunch of columns, but this gives you all the different columns that you can show and hide in AIMS. So this gives you all the issues that we selected in our issue averages, what they sold, what their draw sale on all of them was. This gives you whether or not it's a tried dealer or not. Gives you your whether or not that dealer is authorized. Gives you its on-hold code and its base code. We are managing on-hold codes, base codes, freeze codes, on-service, off-service dates. So AIMS takes all of those into consideration when it's trying to decide if it wants to put a distribution on a dealer. So if these agencies, for example, have a freeze on that dealer, AIMS will not propose a base that's different than that freeze or a low freeze, and it will take that into effect. Dealers on so dealers that are restricted, AIMS will not propose a new base on any of those dealers. For new titles.
I'm good. We're on that AIMS.
Here's your comp title sales. So you can see that the details tab has basically all the information you could ever need if you ever want to pull it into and look at it. This is all export. And then finally the rules tab. So here's all the rules that we applied against it. So if you were to submit this distribution
you're down percent dealers or percent product.
And you were to choose the default template.
No, we only have product.
They got it. Obviously, everybody's template is different. Most of them don't have all the summary tabs. Most of them have the upload tabs, obviously, and the make order summary. That's kind of the most important tab, right? So that quickly, just to show you once again how you would pull that out into Excel, is right here. There's a view results file, and that is available on any of the different summary levels. So now you'll see on my dashboard, I just successfully ran that Kroger distribution. You would see that under here. Here's the sample distribution for people, and you'll see that it came up successful. So all of these are basically, distributions that I've created and I can go back to, okay? For some reason, if I wanted to assign this distribution to somebody else in my team, so let's say I had somebody that was working on a distribution and I wanted to assign it to somebody else to review, you can always view distributions in anybody in your security group. So you're going to be able to view distributions by anybody run within the Time Warner group, and you can do that by clicking Show All Requests. You can see we have different users in here. You can also chat and put in messages here on the right-hand side, which some users are using. You can also assign distributions to different users within your group. So you can click Assign. You can go in, you can select a group to assign it to. You guys will simply see Time Warner. I'll pick my group, and I could pick a different user that I wanted to assign it to. So if I wanted to assign it to somebody else, I could assign it to them. I could click Assign, and then it would show up on their dashboard, and it would show up as their request. So if, for example, you were running distribution and you were assigning them to people, to simply use them and submit them to wholesale. So a lot of times we'll run distributions, or distributions will be created with rule sets. Then they will be moved to a different person. That person will run them, review them, and submit them. However you want to do it, assign a distribution from the dashboard, or you can assign it from any place within the request. So you'll notice we're in here within the request. We're in the rules page. If we got it to this point, we want to push it to somebody else, you'll notice that assign icon is up here as well.
Cool. I like that one.
I think I've touched on a lot of things in regards to running distributions. I think it might be a good time to once again open the floor to questions. Do you have any questions about the flow of the dashboard, or any questions on the rules or anything like that? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, good. All right, the final thing I want to show you is grouping distributions together. That's in the request grouping tab over here on the left. Basically, the way that this came about is wholesalers have asked, hey, we want to just get one distribution file for a bunch of different titles, for all the titles within a given week. So we want to see Us Weekly Star people, all their distributions sent to us in one bulk email with all the distributions. And the way that you would do that is process and finalize all of your distributions, then come into this request grouping place and create request groups. So we can come in and we can create a sample request group. We can take all the distributions we worked on in this given week, apply them to a group, and then from there submit the entire group to wholesale. So the submission piece is exactly the same as it is for a single distribution. However, grouping it is kind of a new window. So the way that you group a distribution is you create a new group. Type this as webinar group. Click Save. Close. Now you'll see that I have a webinar group. I select it. See, I have the webinar group selected over here on the right. Then you can filter down your distributions to let you know which ones you want to put in that group. So you can filter it in a number of different ways. You can filter it by the date it was created. You can filter it by on-sale dates. You could filter it based on a number of different criteria. They filter it on BiPAD. So like if you wanted to submit just a bunch of BiPADs, if you wanted to filter it by request ID, so the request ID that we applied. You can do it in a number of different ways. If we wanted to basically just leave it as is, or if we wanted to come in and say, hey, I want to do all requests that have been created since, let's say, March 1st. Okay. Apply the filter. It's going to show me just distributions I've created. And then basically all you have to do is select those distributions. So you can hold control. You can basically just control it, making them all orange. Okay. Obviously you don't want to do it for two distributions on the same issue. That wouldn't make sense, but it won't let you do that anyways. If you even try, it'll tell you. We've picked these distributions. We've said, hey, we want to group all these distributions together. Let's apply the group. So let's actually pick some with different titles. That makes sense. All right. So we got our webinar group selected, and we want to save selected allotments to that group. Now you'll see that it's added these distributions to the webinar group. But look, I had these in a distribution group before. So if I wanted to remove that, I simply click the X, removes that group from them. So it's almost like applying labels to it. So now we have a webinar group. If we wanted to submit this group to wholesale, we'd click Submit an Allotment Group. You'd click that. It asks you which group you want to submit. We've picked our webinar group. And here's where you'd be taken to your submission page. So here's where you have different groups of agencies. Hudson, Independent, Source. These are some of the ones that I created earlier in the demonstration. And we have an unassigned group. So if you wanted to create a new group for them, we could. But we'd basically pick our group, Hudson Atlas. We'd come down in here. We'd pick our, we wanted to email it. We'd pick our output template. If you have it set up so that it's already linked to a specific Outlook template, all of this will automatically pre-fill. So if you go through the effort going through those user preferences, like I said in the beginning part of the call, all of this would auto-fill and you wouldn't have to do it each time. But you pick your output template. Who are we working on here? We're working on Hudson. Email template. Going to Mike Palazzo, here's a good day, please see the attached distribution, and I would submit this, and all of those titles would go to Hudson Atlas. I'm going to do a test submission, and it would submit that to there. It looks like it's giving me an error because I have the same BiPAD selected twice, so it's not letting me submit the same BiPAD distribution twice to duplicate dealers, which is fine. Obviously, you wouldn't do that in the real world, but all right, so that's grouping submissions. That's the last thing. This is a new piece that we just put in last week. So an example of how the tool is beginning or continuing to change over time, but that's a new piece that we've put in. Obviously, some of the stuff that I touched on that we're striving towards is making sure that the templates that are going to the wholesalers are exactly as they want them. If you start to receive feedback from the wholesalers that this isn't exactly what they want to see, please, please, please share that feedback with me so I can get that information going to them exactly how they want to see it. We're also working on pointing Ames towards POS information. We're also trying to build in audit reports, so reporting showing what users are doing and looking to see what % of distributions are being accepted and all of that. All of this is new stuff that's on the horizon. It's exciting for us, and we're building this tool. We're happy that we're at a phase now where we're allowed to share the tool with the magazine industry, and we're happy that we're having a bunch of people to use it and give us valuable feedback. This is all that I have on my list of things to show you guys. I'm going to stop the recording of the meeting. I will make it available to everyone. I will email everyone that's been either in the training session 1 or 2. If anybody missed the training, be it the folks in India or people that couldn't make it here with us today, I'm going to share it with them. And you can always go back and reference this meeting if you have any questions about some of the things that I explained. At this time, I'm also going to open the floor up to questions. For those of you that don't have questions,